Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Stotra Satta Sri Simad His Divine Grace Shiraboy Charanarvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki ISKCON DVT Founder Charyas Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sagaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Giridhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Giri Govardhana Ki Sri Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Sri Dwarka Dham Ki Sri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Sri Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Sri Mayapur Chandradev Mandir Ki Gangamai Jamunamai Ki Tulsi Vibhakti Revi Ki Harinama Sankirtan Ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Shri Sri Gauranitai Ki Jai Shri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi Ki Jai Sri Krishna Balaram Ki Jai Sri Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Madhava Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande. All glories to be assembled devotees, all glories to be assembled devotees, all glories to be assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Takshurundritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Huttale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jita Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savarutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara, Narayan Rishi, the Supremest Human Being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Nanyam Swastaya Namaha. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, Sri Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara, Sri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Mukham karoti vasalam pangum langayate girim yat kripatamaham vande Srivaram Dinataranam. Yat kripatamaham vande Srivaram Dinataranam. Glasses, I think, may not be here. Strange. You can read the verse, possibly. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 4, chapter 13, text number. What is it?
19 and 20.
19 and 20.
I read word to
You read the Sanskrit?
yeah.
Word for word, Sanskrit? Yeah.
Yam anga sepuhu kupita vak vajra munayaha kila kata shosha tasya bhuyas te mamantur dakshinam karam Arajake tada loke dasyubihi piditaha rajaha jato naranam shena rutur adyaha shitishwaraha.
Yeah, do the first one.
Yamanga sepuhu kupita Vagvajra munayo kila Gatasostasya bhuyaste Mamantur dakshinam karam Yamanga sepuhu kopita Vagvajra munayaha kila Gatastasya bhuyaste Mamantur dakshinam karam.
Yep, word for word.
Yam,
Yam,
Him,
Him,
Vena,
Vena,
Om, Anga,
Anga,
my dear,
my dear
Vidura,
my dear Vidura,
Sepuho, they cursed, Kupitaha,
Kupitaha,
being angry,
being angry,
Vak Vajraha,
Vajraha,
whose words are
whose words are
as strong as
long as
a thunderbolt,
a thunderbolt.
Munayaha,
Manayaha,
great sages,
great sages,
Kila, indeed,
indeed,
Gata Ashoha,
Gata Ashoha,
Gata Ashohatasya, after he died,
after he died.
Bhuyaha, moreover,
Moreover,
they,
they
Mamantuhu, churned,
turned
Dakshinam,
Dakshinam,
right,
right,
Karam,
Karam,
hand,
hand,
Arajake,
Aradake,
being without a king, Tada, then, Loke,
Loke,
the world,
the world,
thus you be
thus you will be
by
he,
rogues and thieves,
by rogues and thieves,
Piditaha,
Piditaha,
suffering,
suffering,
Prajaha,
Prajaha,
all the citizens,
all the citizens,
Jataha,
Jataha,
advented,
advented,
Nara,
Nara,
Narayana,
Narayana,
of the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
of the Supreme Personality of God.
Hamsena, by a partial representation, Prutuhu,
Kritu,
Adyaha,
Arjaha,
original,
original,
Kshiti, Ishwaraha,
Iti Ishvaraha,
ruler of the world.
ruler of the world. Yeah. Okay. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. My dear Vidura, when great sages curse, their words are as invincible as a thunderbolt. Thus, when they cursed King Vena out of anger, he died. After his death, since there was no king, all the rogues and thieves flourished, and the kingdom became unregulated, and all the citizens suffered greatly. On seeing this, the great sages took the right hand of Vena as a churning rod, and as a result of their churning, Lord Vishnu, in his partial representation, made his advent as King Prithu, the original emperor of the world. Everyone kindly repeat after me. My dear Vidura, when great sages curse, their words are as invincible as a thunderbolt. Thus, when they cursed King Vena out of anger, he died. After his death, since there was no king, all the rogues and thieves flourished. The kingdom became unregulated. And all the citizens suffered greatly. On seeing this, the great sages took the right hand of Vena as a churning rod. And as a result of their churning, Lord Vishnu, in his partial representation, made his advent as King Prithu, the original emperor of the world. purport. Monarchy is better than democracy because if the monarchy is very strong, the regulative principles within the kingdom are upheld very nicely. Even 100 years ago, in the state of Kashmir in India, the king was so strong that if a thief were arrested in his kingdom and brought before him, the king would immediately chop off the hands of the thief. As a result of this severe punishment, there were practically no theft cases within the kingdom. Understandably. Even if someone left something on the street, no one would touch it. The rule was that the things could be taken away only by the proprietor and that no one else would touch them. In the so-called democracy, wherever there is a theft case, the police come and take note of the case, but generally the thief is never caught, nor is any punishment offered to him. As a result of incapable government, at the present moment, thieves, rogues, and cheaters are very prominent all over the world. They're coming today for water?
They came already.
Already? Okay. Earlier. So the translation again. My dear Vidura, when great sages curse, their words are as invincible as a thunderbolt. Thus, when they cursed King Avena out of anger, he died. When they cursed King Avena out of anger, he died. After his death, since there was no king, all the rogues and thieves flourished. The kingdom became unregulated, and all the citizens suffered greatly. On seeing this, the great sages took the right hand of Vena as a churning rod, and as a result of their churning, Lord Vishnu, in his partial representation, made his advent as King Prithu, the original emperor of the world. Interesting description. Unusual. We can get a little glimpse of how powerful were brahmanas in those days, or how powerful one who actually follows the various principles to become a qualified brahmana can become himself powerful. So here we see that simply, this is after a long, giving a long list of different kings and family lineage, we come to the story of King Anga, whose son was Vena, but of bad character. Normally when one is, this is an example, although one may be born in a good family, it is considered auspicious and pious to be born either in a Brahmana family or Kshatriya family, as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita. Those who have not finished their business in terms of practicing spiritual life, those who have not yet become fully realized, they will get the opportunity in their next life to be born in either a family of Brahmanas or Kshatriyas. Because generally there are more facilities in those families to practice Krishna consciousness. They are part of what we call the Dvijas. Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas are twice born, and therefore all of them chant Gayatri every day, all of them worship the deity every day, all of them study Shastra every day, like that. So here we see how even in such pious family, sometimes it may happen that a personality like King Vina will make his appearance. So therefore, what our Vaishnava Sampradaya teaches is that one's quality or one's Varna is not simply determined by birth. I may be born in a, like here, Pina was born in a pious family, but he turned out to be a great rogue and thief himself. So two things that are quite outstanding here, especially. One is that simply by cursing, curses in Kali Yuga don't have too much, effect. But traditionally, even at the beginning of Kali Yuga, as we know, Sringi, the son of a Brahmana, upon seeing that his father had been insulted, cursed Parikshit Maharaj. And that means that from a very young age, in such pious family, especially Brahminical family, where one performs all the different samskaras, then even at a very young age, we see how even, 5,000 years down in Kali Yuga, in some of our Vaishnava Sampradayas, young boys take sannyas at the age of 10 and 12. And normally taking of sannyas is at the end of one's life. For those who take birth, generally speaking, in Brahmana families, or who develop Brahminical qualities, even if one is not born in a Brahmana family, by proper training and education, one can develop these qualities of a Brahmana, and if he does so, then he becomes qualified to take sannyas. And these are the type of individuals that are, as we can see here, this is one of two examples that are being presented here, how powerful those who are trained in Brahminical culture can become, that simply by cursing King Vina, then he died. The second rather outstanding, extraordinary incident is that by taking the arm of King Vena after he had died, and by churning it, means by turning it around. I don't know the technique. There are no videos we can watch for that also. But there are great sciences unknown to the vast majority of people regarding, there are certain mantras or certain rituals whereby one can revive a dead person. I'm sure this would be of interest to many people, but it requires a lot of
knowledge which all begins with something that modern people are not interested in very much, tapasya. Tapasya brahmacharyena samena cha damena cha. Controlling the mind, controlling the senses. So just like the, the two youngest of the Pandavas, Sahadev and Nakula, yeah. They knew the science of healing or medicine because they're born from Ashwini Kumar, yeah. So, in other words, this they for example, Karna, who, again, rather unusual situation to be born with earrings and to be born with an armor. But we know in the Mahabharata how, I forget the exact details, but anyways, he cut those off, right? He surrendered those, and he practically died, because especially, earrings is one thing. To cut off your, part of your ear, yes, he had to give up, Again, I don't know how, these are very unusual, but anyways, Nakula and Sahadev were called upon, although they were not so much inclined, but that's part of the Vedic culture. They accepted the advice and orders of their superiors, and by giving different oils, they actually healed. We know how Ayurvedic medicine is extremely powerful, especially when one is dealing with what is called treatment through minerals, which are practically speaking a lost science. So medicine, that's also part of Brahminical, we could say, activity or profession. It is Brahmanas who would become Kaviraj, and there are books of knowledge that are still there today. And these make up the subject matters actually for Brahmanas. So Brahmanas were powerful in terms of being able to, simply by cursing, by vibrating certain mantras, one could die. And they also, Prabhupada one time was explaining how this was part of the Vedic culture. Anyone who was a Brahmana, people would naturally be inclined to go and associate with them because they knew that Brahmanas have a little bit of knowledge about astrology and medicine. Everyone wants to know what will happen, what's my future, who will I marry, or what job will I get, whatever. Most people generally ask the wrong questions, but they know that Brahmanas, traditionally, they because that's part of the curriculum, isn't it, in Gurukula. At least not everyone necessarily became a full expert because there are so many branches of knowledge. Traditional education, as we should know, most of us are much less familiar actually with traditional education. That is something that Srila Prabhupada wanted us very much to introduce, both through Gurukula and Varnasrama colleges. Traditional education, to this day, in so many ways remains, unknown to the vast majority of our devotees. And that is meant to be the main
we could say, subject matter of study for those who are meant to study. For those who are actually meant to study means actually the Brahmanas, especially the Brahmanas. Kshatriyas, they will learn some basic general, mostly philosophy, and then they will, after a short time, begin to specialize in the sciences connected with Kshatriyahood. Dhanurveda and other such literatures are there. So all of those are very nicely given in our Shastra, and that is what made up, traditional education, which is a totally different from what is existing today. So, Prabhupada in the purport, of course, makes reference and gives an example of the king of Kashmir, who not that long ago, it means some of these principles were still followed here in India in terms of Kshatriyas. I mean, before the British colonized India, India was governed by various kingdoms in different states, etc., like that, right up until the independence of India. And in many ways, it's a sad story, or a sad situation, or unfortunate situation, because there are still many families of Kshatriyas who, of course, probably very few are strictly following, but it's like many of the qualities it's part of one's, practically speaking, one's DNA. There's a whole influence that comes through family lineage. That's not all of it, but there's a good amount of natural qualities that more easily one will be able to develop when born in such higher families. Someone sent a short article of one person, one scholar, mentioning how the caste system, this was a recent, somebody was giving a lecture somewhere here in India. I don't know the details as such, but mentioning how the caste system was a Western invention or something. And questioning actually the origin. The caste system, as we understand from Shastra, is not something that was recently made up or invented. It has always existed because it's part of human psychology and human, we could say, society or sociology. So that's one of the important things that one learns when studying within the system of Gurukula, when studying the traditional way by qualified teachers. One comes to learn that this is all part of what we call Sanatana Dharma. And therefore, those who are not following this line of learning, those who are, especially, let's say, modern day scholars and educators, they will have so many different ideas and thoughts about what we call Hindu Dharma. But of course, we know from Srila Prabhupada's explanation also that even that term Hindu Dharma is not the correct or proper way to refer to this ancient culture and ancient knowledge and ancient science, of which we get some glimpses by reading such stories of King Vena and how. So the point being made here regarding Kashmir, that when there is a qualified and powerful, just like another example, Prabhupada explains how in the Vedic culture, capital punishment means that if somebody is found to have killed another person, then he should die. He should be executed. And modern day position from different governments around the world is has changed, or is constantly changing, and they prefer giving maybe a life sentence to someone, or even possibly less at times. Of course, in our Vedic understanding and philosophy, it's not simply a matter of killing humans. One should also not be killing, especially unrestrictedly, other living entities, animals, in particular the cow. Yeah. So these things can only be implemented when there are qualified. Qualified means individuals who know the science, who have developed the various qualities needed to be ruling as a king, and therefore who are very powerful and can, it is necessary that there be strict laws in a kingdom that is professing to follow dharma. If one wants to live in a kingdom where there is no dharma, which is pretty well the situation all over the world, then okay, one doesn't have to follow too many things, and one can change the laws as he wishes. But that is not going to help individuals become self-realized and solve the real problems of life. So we touched on this point about monarchy a few days ago. Our monarchy is meant to be a subject matter that some of our devotees within ISKCON should be studying. How many devotees do you know are studying, the Kshatriya Dharma? I don't even know of one, actually. I don't know of any place. Well, actually I do. I'll take that back. There is one devotee in Italy who has established, and he has his own website also. I don't think I'll be able to tell the exact name, but he has a foundation or organization that he calls something like the Global Martial Arts Kshatriya Foundation. And he was having, I just about attended one of them actually, an annual convention, just like we have our annual convention in Mayapur, ILS. So he was having, so that this is needed, actually, that this is part of what Prabhupada instructed. These are the standard Vedic sciences that are meant to be we can say, mainstream curriculum. Mainstream means the primary, the central curriculum. And if we establish that, things will change. And the idea is that that's the only way to establish Dharma. Of course, this is not to in any way minimize what is meant to be the Yuga Dharma for the stage of Kali, which is Harinam Sankirtan. It is not to replace that or to minimize that in any way. But in order for that Harinam Sankirtan Yuga Dharma to take shape, these make up Vedic culture that are standard sciences. Once again, they are meant to be the curriculum that our devotees actually study. And these are meant to be studied especially by these particular sciences, because actually these sciences of pertaining to Kshatriya culture, pertaining to Brahmana culture, pertaining to Vaishya culture, these are actually sciences for men, because they prepare and train individuals in that particular varna. And because we are not addressing this, therefore we are very confused about so many other things as to what role and occupation men and women should be taking within society. Since it's close to the end of the class, I won't get into a whole discussion on this topic, but actually it does need to be addressed. And it can only be properly understood when we attentively and regularly hear what is presented in the Shastra. You know, we hear about King Parikshit Maharaj, we hear about King Yudhishthira Maharaj, we hear about King Prithu Maharaj, we hear about King Vena, we hear about kings, isn't it? The whole Bhagavatam is about Manus. Manus are all kings. We don't hear about queens. The queens are there. What's a king without a queen? And queens are also, very qualified in terms of knowing and understanding the science of Kshatriyahood, because they're living with the Kshatriya. And even sometimes there are anecdotes, or history is there, that sometimes they will even fight. But that is not their primary role, isn't it? So what we see as some unusual and exceptional situation is not something that we should want to standardize. And that's a defect that comes up very often in so many similar examples. What happens once or twice or exceptionally is not meant to be the standard. So Vedic knowledge, especially Srimad Bhagavatam, teaches us very nicely what is meant to be the norm, what is meant to be the standard. So the standard in terms of governance is Kshatriyahood. And so we have right behind me the makings of Varnasrama College. Is your sign up? Your sign should be prominent. Your sign should be so prominent that actually from here people can see it. Or even now from our new Rajmarg, one arrow, Varnasrama College. That's something we'll need to do actually shortly. What do they call it? Whenever you go to some place,
Map. Layout map.
And there's a special word.
Yeah.
It always slips my mind. But there's a special name where numbers are there, and you are here.
You are here, yeah.
You are here, and then you know where everything else is. It'll probably come later. Anyways, so therefore Prabhupada wanted, and that's one of the primary reasons why he wanted way back then when he was physically present with us, he wanted that every center have a Varnasrama college to begin teaching this standard knowledge, to begin explaining how the subject matter, these traditional sciences, for Brahmanas, for Kshatriyas, for Vaishyas, for the Dvijas, they are meant to be the standard curriculum in our educational institutions, which is not the case. Which is not the case, unfortunately, in our modern day, 21st century, sorry. We are in the 21st century, 2020, which is not the case. And therefore we are suffering. We are suffering. Ignorance is the cause of suffering, isn't it? Yeah. So any comments or questions on this very interesting activities of the Brahmanas here? And we should not imitate, eh? Don't try to churn somebody's arm. And see what happens, even if you chant your mantra, which they had special mantras to do that, definitely.
Question Maharaj. Assuming that when we say implementing Varnashram within ISKCON, generally it means we should be organized local centers as well as entire society as well as the organization in a Kshatriya, Brahmanas advising, a lot of Vaishyas producing, a lot of Shudras helping producing in this way. So coming back to yesterday, before a few days ago, we were talking about Dandaniti.
Yes.
And this purport also talks about kind of Dandaniti, the science of punishment.
Of course, yeah.
So within ISKCON, we don't see there is prescribed or guidelines for punishment. There's a lot of emphasis given on forgiveness and compassion, these kind of things.
Yes.
So when we go on organizing or reforming or restructuring centers or organization in a Varnashram system, should we take into consideration these punishments or danda?
And there needs to be a proper, so your question is that we read about this aspect of Kshatriyahood, referred to as Dandaniti, whereby, as in this particular example, there is punishment awarded either by a qualified king, like Parikshit Maharaj was taking out his sword and ready to punish Kali, right? Or here we see punishment on the part of the Brahmanas by cursing King Vena, as a result of which he died. So your question is that, assuming that in due course of time we gradually do introduce within ISKCON Varnasrama, will this aspect of Dandaniti also be there? Because from your observations and possibly others, it seems to be rather conspicuous by its absence or not present. You see, the application of Varnasrama Dharma and the organizing of society, and therefore the establishment of rules and regulations, which entails, of course, punishment for those who don't follow these rules and regulations, is meant to be the business of Kshatriyas. So even if we establish within ISKCON Varnasrama Dharma, we as a society are part of a larger society, isn't it? We take, for example, a village. In a village, there's a temple. Traditionally, there's a temple in every. There's a temple in every village, and there are brahmanas. But the brahmanas and members of the Brahminical families although they are the brahmanas of the village, they have to abide by the structure and organization that is governed by the kshatriyas. Of course, the kshatriyas take guidance and advice from the brahmanas, but if there's a question of punishment, it is not the business of brahmanas to punish. It is the business of kshatriyas. So, to a large extent, because we don't have, we're not meant also to become the ones to punish. Of course, we do have, within our society, there are various rules and regulations, and at times when people are either on the temple level or on the society level, when individuals are not following, then they are brought to task and will sometimes be, in extreme cases, maybe removed from their particular position, or sometimes even expelled from ISKCON, which is rare, but it does happen. But of course, here we're talking on a much larger scale in terms of society. So possibly another factor is that most of us as devotees, most of our devotees, are not living in this more kind of natural setting. Rather, most devotees are in our cities and they are not under a temple. They may be connected. Many of them are. Probably the majority are not so active because as grihasthas they are busy with their social family responsibilities. So in any city temple there's a small core of individuals. Of course, congregational members are always encouraged and invited to participate and to help in different ways, and they do also, and that is meant to increase. But those who are living in temples are the ones who are more under, we could say, the scrutiny of the leadership locally or within ISKCON. ISKCON, even though somebody's a life member, for example, doesn't really have any, So these things will become more easy to understand, or will be, will come to light more when we see more of the Varnasrama aspect introduced within general society, number one, and also when we see that more introduced within our own ISKCON society. Now, for example, if we were to take statistics, it's probably something like 99% of our devotee population in the world are connected with city temples. And probably less than 1% are connected with farm communities or rural projects. Actually, the opposite should be there. The opposite should be there for general society. The vast majority of people, just like, I used to mention that when I came to India, in the 70s, population in the villages of India was 85% or more. Prabhupada mentions even over 90%. That was the case like in Cambodia when I went there some 15, 20 years back, 15 years. So that actually is meant to be the standard, and it's only when this begins to happen that many of these things that we're reading about will come to light. We will be able to understand them more clearly. Right now it's like more difficult actually to understand, more difficult to implement some of these practices and whatnot. And this will only come about when we have more of our devotees, especially brahmanas, more of our brahmana devotees who will have studied and learned this, number one. And secondly, when we also begin to have qualified kshatriyas within our own society, or connected with our society. We're meant to train individuals within our society and to offer opportunities as best as we can for people outside. I was in Europe last year. One devotee who's having major role and responsibility in Europe was mentioning how he and a few other devotees were kind of like in a secular way establishing courses for general people, general leaders in society, maybe in different companies or organizations, just to train without presenting themselves as upfront devotees. You know, there's because many people immediately if they see somebody dressed with tilak coming on our at their office, they're just not going to open the door. They'll be less inclined. But there's a lot of activities in modern day society. People becoming counselors, or different terms are there to just help people in a general way, because so many people don't really know how to handle themselves or how to handle their family situation, etc. like that. So in other words, we have to become expert not only in terms of teaching within our ISKCON society, but we also have to become expert in bringing this philosophy out in the open to the secular world and to teach it to people who will not even know that we are devotees. So, different ways that we can be and should be introducing Krishna consciousness. Unlimited ways are there. So we will stop here for now. Jai Grantarajman Bhagavatam ki, Jai Sri Prabhupada ki.
Jai.